All right, welcome to the podcast. This is going to be a mix up. There are some grooming ideas. I'm getting the podcast all scheduled out, and I'm about to have an introduction that I'll read the same every time, but for now, I'll just make it up. My name's Luke. Uh, this here is STL Pareto, it's a podcast, the Success Programs podcast, and STL Pareto is based around the cornerstone of Pareto optimality. It's also called the 80-20 principle or Pareto efficiency. And basically, this means just making better decisions about your life if you're an entrepreneur or business owner. The title of this video is Make Your Own Luck by Seizing Opportunities. And what we'll talk about a bit later on is one of the principles that you've got to be always preparing. Must be always preparing because you don't have the ability to seize opportunities if you're not preparing. Preparing both helps you seize opportunities as well as before that helps you to see opportunities because you must have opportunities that you are aware of. And if you have low levels of awareness, then no matter how many opportunities come along your way, you will be unable to recognize them as opportunities. But once you recognize it, have awareness of it, you make your own luck by seizing the opportunity. So you must first see the opportunity and then seize it. Seize it like carpe diem, seize the day. So how do you do that? Well, don't focus so much on tomorrow that you lose sight of today. Um, we're going to talk about later on how there's four core values. You can go back to that one in the podcast. The first core value is ambition. So that means dream big, think big. Think big thoughts, epic thoughts. Like, the reason I mentioned Elon Musk being so inspirational is his ability to think so epically epic. And, in my 5 step method, all the results begin with a dream. And in your life, all of your results begin with a dream. You're either happy or unhappy based on the results that you're currently getting, but it's important to acknowledge that the results are not some static place. It's always changing all the time. So if your results are unsatisfactory, it starts with a new dream. So dream big is ambition. That's core value one, and that's summed up in core value one. Core value two is self discipline. Do you have the ability to stick to a plan? We're going to talk about later on how planning comes after dreams. So you have to be able to, if you're not able to swiftly and easily go from a dream to a plan, then it doesn't matter how big you dream. It will never be made into a goal because that's the intermediary process. Is from a dream you make a goal, from a goal you make a plan. So in order to get to plans, you must make a goal first. Setting big dreams with strong ambitions, core value one, and core value two is self discipline. Do you have the ability to follow through with the plans that come out of the goals that come out of the dreams? Big dreams and make goals. If you can't go from dreams to goals, it's not really going to work out. You're not going to be able to really seize the opportunities that come your way. So that's important perspective right there. Volunteer your free time, not for others, but as you invest into yourself. Most people don't think of their time quite the same way as I do because time, you see, is always moving. And at the same time, it's always unmoving. These are both paradoxically true statements. And later on, I'll explain a little bit as to what this paradoxical statements are and so forth. Long story short, it means that I'm a multidisciplinary academic. So that means before I go on to decide what type of solution I am to find, I go on first to define what type of problem this is, and thereby what type of thinking would be best to analyze if there even is a problem in the first place, and thereafter deciding what type of solution, because work is just something that you want to be different than it currently is. You say, I want something to be different than it currently is, and that's all that is. It's not so much that the work you do is good or bad. It's just that the work you do, you want something to be different than it is, and that's what change is about. So, even though that we're all experiencing the long clock of now, which is on the book list, even though we're all experiencing the long clock of now, things are always changing. We got to respect the fact that things are always changing. That's what flowing momentum is all about. That's what flowing momentum is all about. Three-step process, and the first of which is the law of change, that all things are changing. The second is the law of sequence, that you have to sequence your actions in appropriate order, which is what plans are about in the five-step method. And third is momentum. Once you've got the first two lined up, you get momentum, and next thing you know, you're flowing momentum. And that's what flow is. My definition of flow comes from two books, actually. It comes from Flow, the actual science, the psychology of optimal human experience. That is a scientific book, actually, and that's called Flow. And secondly, what I've defined flowing momentum here is not based only on flow by that book, which is about 70 or 85%. So Pareto's law, I guess it is, but another 20% or so of my definition of what flow is comes from this book right here, The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin. So Josh Waitzkin is knows the road to excellence, catapulted into a media whirlwind as the child, the subject of the book and movie Searching for Bobby Fischer. He has mastered both the rigorous mental game of chess, winning his first national championship at the age of 9, and the strenuous physical challenge of martial arts, becoming a master of Tai Chi Chuan and earning the title of world champion. His phenomenal success is due to the learning techniques he developed to bring both his mind and body to peak performance. If a riveting narrative that takes readers on his journey of discovery, conquering the high-pressure challenges of intensely competitive chess face-offs and heart-stopping martial art wars. He reveals the inner workings of his method, from systematically triggering intuitive breakthroughs to building resilience to mastering the art of performance psychology, which I'm also world class at because of having read this book. So if you want to be too, check it out. The Art of Learning is essential reading for those who want to reach the highest levels of achievement. So right here, chapter 17, building your trigger. You could say that flowing momentum is kind of like building your trigger. And that's not literally building your trigger, but it means that flowing momentum is a process, not a place. It's a system. It's a living system, not a thing. A thing like even physical things like rocks are always changing. Even the metal, human bodies turn to that dust, right? And metal, like any sort of steel or iron, will last hundreds of years longer than human body pieces would last, or bones, or skeletons, or something. Rocks and metal, they last a lot longer than any living organism, but still they are always changing. So the tectonic plates that cause all of the earthquakes along California and those states, because the plates are moving, because Earth is alive. It's not just the humans, you and me, that are alive. It's also, and not just all of the other animals, the cats, the dogs, and all of the nature that's at the zoo that we visit in cages, but also Earth itself is alive. The whole atmosphere, the whole all of life on the crust, because the crust makes up less than 1% of Earth. Think about that. Less than 1% of all that Earth is the crust, and that's where we are. We make up about that much. Earth itself is living. We're just a little manifestation of it. Make your own luck by seizing opportunities. How do you do that? You're always preparing. You're always getting ready. That's why I recommend some sort of self-guided education regimen that you enjoy. It's not the same if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. The whole point is that it can actually improve your life by having more accurate thought. They say that, whether pessimist or optimist, you can be optimistic and have an accurate view on the world. You don't have to be pessimistic just to have an accurate view on the world. So I have an accurate view on the world. It's very objective. It's very accurate in a way that most people could not understand. Nonetheless, I enjoy it. I'm optimistic about it in the future and what it means for me and what I can do for these clients that I'm taking on. I have 2 clients scheduled to jump board before the last week of March. So by the last week of March, I'll have 2 clients, and that's my ultimate goal right now. Is that by the end of the first quarter, I'll have at least 1 client and perhaps 2. So I'm preparing for that, and this podcast is only taking up a small amount of my time right now. Volunteer your free time, not for others, but as you invest into yourself. Now, what this really means is that time itself is an investment. Think about time as if it was money. Think about time as if it was money. 24 hours per day. 168 hours per week. Or was it $24,000 per day and $168,000 per week? Because your time is at least that valuable, and probably a million times more. Your time being more valuable than your money is something that any successful human being is able to comprehend. If you really want to be best in the world, check out my ebook. This is how you do it. Volunteer your free time. Keep listening to the podcast mainly, because the ebook, I'm still finishing it actually. It's about 99% done. And once it's done, but you can get on the email anyway, so I'll just send you an email when it's done on my website. Volunteer your free time, not for others, but as you invest into yourself. So an investor mentality, an investor mindset is also one of my strongest mindsets. One of my strongest mindsets. A mindset of being a world-class psychology, a mindset of being a world-class marketing expert in terms of copywriting and salesmanship, and world-class in also being an investor mentality and being able to see the world's interactions, all decision-making that takes place as a matter of investments from a 1-2 thing or another. So that's the case in this example of the third perspective is volunteer your free time, not for others, but as you invest into yourself. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with volunteering either, and I want to make that clear because volunteering is a good thing. I volunteered before. I remember being in the National Junior Honor Society, and then eventually volunteered some time just working in a library basically for free, going to a food pantry one time I did. about 3 or 4 months of my life, I volunteered at this food pantry, which was just like, once a week, all these people show up to get their food, and then they need people to go and walk around and basically shop with the people and give them a certain amount of this and that's all. They blah blah blah. And I did that for about 3 or 4 months. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with volunteering because it's very good for the heart to have generosity. That's the hidden core value. Number 5, generosity, hidden core value. So having generosity of your time is important, but you also want to be a little stingy of your time too, because time is all you've got of life. All memories make up your experience of life, and all memories are based on where your time is divided or invested upon throughout the cycles of change that we experience on a daily, monthly, quarterly, weekly, yearly basis through all 4 seasons. Because right now, here it is, week 5 or 6 of the year of 2020. So, what's my 2020 business vision? I want you to ask yourself, and then use that as the ambitious fuel to invest in yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Dream big. The whole 5-step process begins with your dreams. So continue to dream big so that you have the investment mentality into yourself. How do you invest into yourself? Doing things that you can benefit and benefit others as well. Because if you just look for things that you always benefit, you will not be the fullest amount of happiness inside. But if you look for things that bring you good outcomes and bring other people good outcomes together at the same time, in the same decision-making process, at the same game matrix in game theory, that when I benefit, you also benefit, that we both benefit at the same time as often as humanly possible. When you have that outlook on life, things just go a little bit better for you. So that's a little bit more what generosity is all about. Invest into yourself. It's important. And lastly, it's about the journey, not the destination. Have a beginner spirit, mastering the fundamentals to include connection with your inner child. All of us have an inner child, whether you're connected to it or not. There's an inner child somewhere inside. And your ability to connect with that and use that to your advantage is actually dependent upon you being world class or not. It's not the easiest process. It's difficult at first, but it's worth the investment of willpower if you can manage it. It's about the journey, not the destination. This means not necessarily being attached to the outcomes that we experience. In life, we want to compete, we want to win, and winning is good to experience, but winning itself is not the destination. It's about the journey. Who you became along the way matters most. In life, when you're dead, and I know this sounds morbid, but it's really not, because that's the way you want to look at your life. When you're 100 years old and you're laying back on your deathbed, if you live that long, if you're lucky enough to live that long, and you're 100 years old and you're on your deathbed and you're thinking, what was my life like? And how you define success there is going to depend a little bit how you define success here. And today we talk about how your definition of success, because yours is probably a little different than mine. That's natural, all of y'all. But also your definition of failure is largely what determines your definition of success. Your definition of success depends on your definition of failure. Having a beginner spirit and mastering the fundamentals through daily habits. So make yourself more aware of the opportunities every single day, thereby mastering that fundamental habit with a new subconscious belief. You're welcome. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for checking out STL Pareto. Once again, you can get my free ebook online, stlpareto.com. Thank you. Check you out on the next podcast. Talk to you then.